Well, turning back now to Major League Baseball, which John was referencing, they've pulled their All-Star game out from Atlanta to protest their new re-election laws. Joining us now with reaction and legal analysis is distinguished university professor at Touro College and author of the book Saving Free Speech, attorney Thane Rosenbaum. Thane, thank you for joining us on this topic that everyone's talking about. Legally, is there any reason that the MLB cannot do this?
Well, hi, Heather. Hi, Bob. Look, remember, the Citizens United Supreme Court case made it very clear that corporations have First Amendment rights to engage in politics. So, you know, any business can do that. I always wonder, why would you want to do that? Because you would essentially alienate a large number of your consumers. Remember, when the NFL initially responded to Colin Kaepernick's taking of a knee after the Michael Brown death, they stepped in and told the league to not allow that because the fans didn't like it. And that changed, of course, with the death of George Floyd. But again, you always place yourself in the risk, if you're a company, of the fans being turned off. In the case of Colin Kaepernick, there were fans that thought that players should stand at attention for the playing of the national anthem. And here, the question is, should Major League Baseball be involved in Georgia's own election laws? They're not experts on this. And let me just say one really quick thing. Most people do not know. Baseball enjoys an exemption from antitrust scrutiny that no other professional sports has, which means they can fix prices, they can abuse their monopoly power, and there's nothing that can be done on it under federal law to stop them for these antitrust violations. And I think now Congress should take a good look at this, because if the Major League Baseball wants to get involved in politics, maybe they should be stripped of this exemption that we don't give the NFL or the NBA or the hockey leagues.
You know, Michael Jordan years ago used to have Air Jordans, and they said, you never get involved in the politics. He says, I don't do that because conservatives buy shoes too. And so he didn't want to alienate people. It seems like athletics now, I just want to watch the game. I love baseball, played a lot. I love basketball and football too. I don't want to hear the politics.
Look, you know, as we've seen, what's very different in the cancel woke culture is that the bandwagon is very long, and it's very fashionable now to be on it. And so I think that these businesses, what is Coca-Cola doing? You know, they make sugary soda. Why would anyone care what their politics are on this matter? That's their state. That's Georgia. That's their headquarters. And so we're living in a very strange time where, as you know, there is a kind of denunciation on utterly moral grounds. You know, the audacity of Georgia to modify their election laws and try to get it closer to constitutional standards and to be able to reassure its citizens that there is ballot authentication and signature verification. I just don't understand. It just seems to me so cynical and intellectually dishonest that we couldn't possibly expect voters to produce evidence that they are, in fact, who they say they are. Just like we do when it comes for driving and going to baseball games, you need to show your ID. And this is something you both don't know about me. I lived in Harlem for over a decade before the gentrification of Harlem. I don't know a single one of my former neighbors that doesn't have a driver's license or a government-issued ID. I just don't. And I don't know a single one of them that didn't know where the DMV was. And I'm speaking now as a white man. I find this really insulting to African Americans, that what we're really saying is people of color simply are unable to get themselves government-issued IDs. And by the way, both of you, if that's really the issue, then shouldn't we now have a protest, government protest, and make it possible to get everyone identification? If that's the answer, rather than dispensing with the verification process, let's go the extra mile and make sure that everyone can prove that they are who they say they are. Because nowadays we are going, from here on in, we're going to be voting much more by mail. And there is a concern that there has always been a concern. Jimmy Carter, former president who's from Atlanta, said that mail balloting is less verifiable and much more subject to fraud. And we're not talking about a widespread fraud here. This is not about this election. This is simply about reassuring voters that legitimate votes are being counted one time and they're verified one time. That's all there is. And I don't see why this is something that corporate America seems to think is appropriate to punish the state of Georgia, because that is at the heart of what is here, a bizarre moral aversion to signature verifications and ballot authentications.
Yeah, and if you actually read the law that was passed in Georgia, it actually makes voting easier compared to some other states. And go ahead.
Mine,
Yeah.
my state. New York, nine days of voting, Heather, in my state. In Georgia, 17 days of voting with 2 Sundays. 2 Sundays. New Jersey, only 9 days. Georgia, 17 days.
Yeah, and the majority of folks seem to agree with you as well. 75% think that you should have voter ID as well. Thane Rosenbaum, thank you so much for joining us.
Anytime for the both of you.
Right.